thank you guys. Thank you for having all of us. I think I speak on our behalf that we're excited to be here. We're going to be talking about the creator and influencer space, which I think is something that all of us are very, very familiar with. So I'm going to start with the question, and this is directed at all of us. So we'll begin with Diipa. The creator and influencer space has obviously evolved over the years. You've done it for like so many years. You've seen it grow in front of your eyes. What do you think that journey has been, and how do you think that's helped that process, or being a creator and influencer now, helps in building and shaping a brand?
Okay, so in a nutshell, I think when I started my journey, it was 2014, back in Amsterdam. And I remember the way it started. So it was an internship that I went at a fashion agency. And I remember at that point, I came in, and on day 3, I'm closing this massive deal for this woman called Chiara Ferragni, who obviously, as we know, is one of the biggest influencers in the world right now. Back then, she was an Italian student who just started wearing beautiful clothes and posting online on this platform called Instagram. And the deal that I closed was some insane amount with Mango, the fashion brand. And I think that was the moment I had a realization of what is going on here. Yeah. The media landscape is changing as we know it. And I guess I speak for all of us here, we were one of the first few people who saw that happening. We're like, okay, things are going to get digitized. It's going to be about storytelling. It's going to be online. And back then, I was a budding law student, and I made the pivot because this world just engrossed me so much. And then, of course, the evolution of it started with us taking outfit photos, avocado and toast photos that we all remember. You know, there was this influx of travel. People were obsessed with people going all over the world and showcasing the best version of their life, and kind of the FOMO element, where it was all about the best life you can ever had. And then I think during the pandemic, everything changed and it became quite personal. And it wasn't about showcasing that aspirational life that the 1% of the world can get, but it became about bringing it home. Yeah. And it was about how can I keep it real. And now I think phase 3, the word that we've said so much, is the art of storytelling. Yeah. It truly is about how do you say something, whether it's aspirational content or relatable content, or if it's about you being a chef or you being a fitness person, how do you say that story in the best way? And I think that is where we are today. And that's the evolution I've seen in my own content, and that I see around in everybody's content today.
And how do you think this helps shaping brands today, right? Because there are 2 stories to tell there. One is the brands and one is the individual creator. Yeah. So what's your thought on that?
So I always say for brands today to succeed in today's environment, and I do that very much with my own brand as well, is the brand is not a brand anymore, but the brand needs to almost become a person. Yeah. And it needs to become human, like a brand with a personality, a brand with it's not just about sales, look at what I have better than other brands, but it's really about if that brand was a person, how would they tell a story, what kind of other creators would that brand work with, and just how would it connect with its community. Like it's so much more than a buzzword, like being a community brand, but it's truly about how do you, as a person, interact with your community today.
Right. Yeah. And what are your thoughts? I mean, you work with creators and brands alike, and you guys have told so many brand stories via creators. So what is your thought process on this?
I feel like it's been a while since we've been in the space, and the way it's evolved also is like quite good to witness. Like back in the day, one of the first brands that I'd actually worked with was Sheth from Marico's roster back in 2017, 2018 for an event that they had in Delhi. You know, the philosophy that like even traditional brands had back then while working with influencers to what it is now has like enormously changed. I feel there's a lot more, you know, freedom that's being given to the creators. There's a lot more understanding on how they want creators to be working with them as well. There's no more of the same old, push our logos as much, make the fonts bigger about our brand. It's a lot more about how can we come together with the creator slash influencer and work with them cohesively in a more mutual format so that it benefits all of us. I also feel like besides that, and I feel like brands have become a lot more smarter now. No one really wants to push an advertisement towards their audiences because on Instagram, what creators are is effectively walking, talking billboards.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's inventory that you're selling, right? On digital as well. But to ensure that you don't make them one completely where if I'm a set vet, I'm not going to go to a male influencer and be like, okay, just talk about set vet for the 1 minute period of the reel.
Right.
How do I smoothly talk about this brand to ensure that the creator's audience also does not disconnect from the content piece? I feel like that's a great movement in which the whole industry has moved forward in. Besides that, I do feel like, like Diipa right here has her own beauty brand. I feel like brands and established companies will also co-create a lot with creators moving forward.
Yeah.
I do personally feel like creators have, I wouldn't say more influence than celebrities per se, but I do feel like they have a more authentic audience and connect with their audiences, which enables them to build brands on top of their personal brands significantly better.
Right.
I do feel like when Diipa, who's been in the space of beauty and fashion for so long, launches her own beauty brand, it comes with a lot of authority, it comes with a lot of research, and we're going to be seeing that a lot more moving forward, as opposed to me seeing a Bollywood celebrity who probably doesn't have a very specific niche
Yeah.
launch like a beauty brand or a clothing brand or things like that.
Right, right. Same. So I think with even with Humans of Bombay, when we do tell brand stories, it's always a very subtle integration. So, for example, the kind of work that we've done with a sanitary napkin brand, we talk about menstruation, and the brand is just there, and
Yeah.
there's no nothing like buy this or that this is why this product is more superior than the other, which is why a lot of brands come to us because they don't want that in the face, integration. Which brings me to my next question is, because you have this agency and you're kind of figuring out the fit between brand and influencer,
Right.
what's the criteria?
I just feel like it's very simple in terms of any creator that we represent or we work with. My conversation with them is, what are your 3 foundational genres that your profile is based on? It could be anything: beauty, fashion, fitness, motivation, wellness, automobile tech, anything, right? Like, do you have that in place first? What I do feel is a lot of creators these days, because there's so much trends being pushed by platforms, they have no foundational genre. Creators back when it started about 2015, 2016, they grew basis the fact that they were either into fashion or beauty or fitness. I feel like that's a huge, kind of deficiency I'm seeing in creators these days. What we do with creators and brands when we need to matchmake is just first look at, is it a genre fit? 2, is it a region or country fit? And 3 is it an age group fit for the brand as well? So it's a very, thankfully and also unfortunately, there's a lot of data available for digital creators, which acts both in their favor and against it. So we just matchmake purely basis the data. So I'm not going to send a bunch of beauty influencers to an automobile event, which is something I feel like PR agencies used to do back in the day, because technically a beauty influencer is going to be charging lesser to you than an automobile or a tech influencer in the same range of followers. So what PR agencies used to do is they just want to make a big buck, and they're like, okay, we just need to fill this event up with influencers regardless of who it is. But the audience of a beauty influencer is probably not looking to buy a car. They're looking to buy cosmetics.
Right.
So it just needs to be a very natural fit in terms of audience and demographics.
Yeah, absolutely. which obviously, Deepa, you've kind of nailed because I remember when you did your Indie Wild campaign, it was just such a bang-on fit, right? Because there was real beauty, it was raw, it was skin types of all kinds. How do you kind of work with creators who bring about your brand messaging clearly? Because it's so important.
Yeah. For me, I think it's because of being a creator myself, I know so well what not to do.
Right.
Because from the beginning, having had brands come up to me with campaigns and controlling the narrative so much, and exactly what you said, like making the font bigger or this or that, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could tell you, but that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I know my audience the best, and I know they know their audience the best, so it's a conversation. It's really, of course, I can see from their profiles and their personalities online which one fits the Indewald personality, going back to how Indewald is a person. So the creators that fit that personality obviously are the ones we approach. And then it's about creating content together with them. It's about, hey, these are the things that I created Indewald with. This is my vision, but what do you see in it that you like? And let's together spread that message, because then it's going to be the most authentic and de-influencer way of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what we're all talking about, like a sanitary pad. If you say, hey, buy it, $5.99, da da da, it's like that's so
Like, no,
90s sitcom kind of marketing. Well, today, I think what we all need to understand is the consumer is very smart.
Right.
And the consumer is only getting smarter. Like it's the same Bollywood actor doing a cement brand and a thingy brand and a Prada and da da da. It's like they see through that, at least the consumer segment we're talking about. Of course, there's the masses who probably will accept that, but the top level consumer segment is very smart. So for them to actually convince them, you need to be as ravishly authentic as possible. And so that's what we try to do with our creators, is try to make them tell the story combined with what the message we want to give.
Right. But do you think that there's a kind of dichotomy, and this question is for both of you, I'll start with Viraj, is in terms of ROI, right? Like brands tend to measure how well has my campaign done basis numbers, as opposed to the subjective value, like you spoke about, like because this creator is just so perfect for my brand. But is there ever a question of numbers that crops in? How do you measure that ROI?
I mean, there is always a question of numbers because at the end, the brand is spending from their own pocket. They want to see an ROI. The way we used to measure ROI has also changed over the years. Back in 2017, when we started doing a lot of campaigns on YouTube, you could actually measure ROI basis the deliverables and basis the commercials you are speaking to the creator with. So for example, if I'm locking a creator for 1 lakh rupees, I would put an affiliate link in their bio or Instagram or YouTube description, and there would actually be sales worth 5 lakh rupees, for example, that the brand would garner, over which they would make 1 lakh rupees in profit. So that would make sense for them that, hey, we're spending 1 rupee and we're getting that back. I do feel that doesn't happen as much now because influencer marketing, in a sense, I wouldn't say it's saturating, but it's not as open as it was back in 2017. There's a lot more players. While the audience has also grown, there's a lot more creators as well. So individual creators don't have as much of an impact directly on sales. But I feel like that's a very myopic way of measuring a campaign now while working with creators. You don't just need to look at pure play sales because they're not your performance marketing tools. If you want to gauge only sales, you need to be deploying your monies on Google ads and Instagram and YouTube ads. Don't go to a creator because you're completely forgetting the aspect that the creator also is producing the content, distributing the content, ideating the content completely all by themselves. So when you're actually hiring a creator, you're hiring 5 different agencies. If you were working with a celebrity, right. Because a celebrity does not write their own scripts, they don't produce their own videos, they don't usually distribute their own content as well, but now that they have social media, they probably do that. But like that's what my core belief is, that when you're working with a creator, you're hiring 5 different agencies. So you need to think of it from that lens that, hey, if I'm spending 10 rupees on an influencer, it's okay if I get 2 rupees back, but also that you are getting a lot of the rub off of the loyalty of followers that the influencer has for your own brand. And while you may not immediately get an ROI and it may not be instant gratification, you will get a lot of those benefits over a period of time, when they would probably have top of the mind recall that, hey, you know what, I saw this brand on my favorite influencer's profile, let me look it up, then let me Google it, go to their website and buy it.
Right.
So you won't be able to track that through a coupon code or an affiliate link, but that is still impact for you basically.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the agency side. What's it like for the business? What is it like for the brand?
So yes, I mean 100% when we have tools, like we have our entire marketing team, and one part is of course influencer marketing, one part is the growth hacking, and then the other part is just B2B sales, all that. So when it comes to ROI, of course, as being a startup, you want every dollar to count or every rupee to count. You want that back tenfold if you can. And with the evolution of influencer marketing, indeed, it's not that easy to see. But being an influencer, I still have the belief in our industry, because I know even though that influencer maybe only made 10 sales, the amount of ripple it's created and the impact it's left is long lasting.
Yeah.
Because no customer today is second going to watch somebody and immediately going to be like, I'm going to buy it. It's going to kind of stay in their mind. So I look at it quite holistically. Right. So it's like you need to do all of it. And so say if somebody's seen it on an influencer, but they've created the awareness, then you double down and show them an ad, you know, and then you double down on your own social media channel as a brand and tell a beautiful story. And the second or third time, they will get convinced, because now it's like, I've seen it there, I've seen another person talk about it, and of course, word of mouth can seal the deal. But if you have checked all the boxes where you've got a disruptive idea, you've got the influencer campaign, you've got the growth hacking and everything, because I think, of course, you can only do one of the 5, but the strategy we use is try to do everything. And then since the iOS update, it is very difficult to track as well. Yeah. Where do sales truly come from? Where does, you know, like, is it truly the influencer, or could it actually have been the bio link, or could it have been the ad that they saw? But ultimately, what we do is a bit of everything. But because I'm an influencer, mostly influencer marketing.
Yeah, and that adds and compounds to brand recall, obviously, which is what eventually makes the purchase. You said something very interesting about storytelling, and I think that's a common factor amongst all 3 of us. I'll start with you. How important has it been to tell the story, and what has that impact been for you?
From a brand or a creator?
I know, it's so confusing. But okay, let's talk about it from a brand level.
From a brand.
Yeah.
India Wild is a passion, like, of mine. It's, like you said, it's so much more than if a celebrity drops another brand. And in the era of celebrities dropping brands left, right, and center, it's so much more than that. Like, for me, if you would literally ask me where our FSC certified carton is from, I would know the supplier's name. Right. Like, I know everything about it, and I truly believe in it. Like, in the mission, I believe in what we're doing, I believe in our products. And so knowing that so well, and then on top of that, being a storyteller is the perfect formula for success, because I cannot tell a good story if I don't believe in my product. So I think it really, for brands today, believes, like, it needs to start with, do you believe in what you're selling? Right. Because it'll show in your eyes, it'll show in your actions, it'll show in your content. And so with India Wild, when we launched first in the US, UK, Canada, and then I remember our India launch, the entire country was talking about it. Yeah. Because they just could feel it, and it's that je ne sais quoi magic element that you know some brands have when you know an insane team is working behind it. It just echoes in everything you do. And so during our launch, you know, we had, of course, the usual influencer event, we had the billboards, we had this big Nika launch and everything. But I think it was that je ne sais quoi of storytelling that brought it all together. It was the way we showed the event. It was the speech that was given by Anchit and me at the Nykaa dinner that really resonated with people, but it was the way we showcased that speech. It was the also feeling the pulse on where the world is going, I think is an important part of storytelling, because when you give a brand to a country of women that are becoming emancipated at a rate that they are emancipating, and you give them a brand that stands with their vision, that is like the definition of how a brand will be successful, because you feel the pulse. And so I think it's so many of these different elements that comes into, again, not selling a product, but telling the story about a product and then letting them decide if they're going to buy into it.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because I remember I told you that I think your packaging is telling a story, and it was beautiful because you didn't even have to know anything about the brand to be able to tell what it is. So I 100% agree.
Thank you. And we thought about it in every angle, like I said. Like our packaging has faces on it.
Yeah.
I have never seen, I don't think ever, I hope someone will like correct me, but I've never seen a beauty brand with real faces on it.
Yeah.
Usually it's the name of the product and flowers and packaging, but we were like, let's put our consumers right on
Exactly.
it. No Photoshop, with acne on it, with real skin on our packaging. And just that simple thing just became a story of its own and
Yeah.
stood us out of the crowd.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
favorite part.
Thank you.
What about you? How has storytelling shaped the way you guys are connecting brand to influencer? Like how do you spin the narrative at the agency level?
I mean, I think storytelling is everything, right? At the crux of it, that is all that we have, and that is all that we do. I feel like every meeting that I go into is a story I need to narrate.
Yeah.
Whether it's with a brand, with a creator that I'm, going to sign, or with an agency that I want to build a partnership with. It's all about weaving the right story, telling them what they're going to get out of this, and very brutally, honestly, telling them what I want out of this as well. But besides that, from a very creator lens, I feel like the creators that we have or we represent, each one of them has to be so authentic to their own stories, because the audience is too smart these days.
Right.
They latch on to it, they latch on to the fakeness, and they will be like, I don't want any more of this. Because there's creators aplenty in the industry on social media now. They are only connecting with two things: people that they can relate to, or people that can make them laugh,
Yeah.
or people that can educate them. Three maybe. So, educate or aspire, or who they aspire to be effectively. So, yeah, I feel like storytelling is so important from that lens. You can't be trying to fake a rags to riches story. If you come from an affluent background, just admit it. Admit your privilege, and it's okay to be privileged and admit it, and still work on what your dreams and aspirations are. For example, as opposed to trying to fake a story to gain sympathy, or other things and other aspects out of it. I just feel like as an agency or at a personal branding level, what I've realized is if I'm not honest, and I bring out all my honesty on Twitter, I'm not very comfortable on video. So Twitter is my platform, and I'm just honest about everything that happens in agency culture, everything that happens in content creation, to the extent that sometimes I also am okay telling the truth on what my co-founder and the behind the scenes of how we're producing content, for example. I feel like, to me, storytelling just means that I need to be brutally honest.
Yeah.
I think Diipa and us, we were having a conversation behind the scenes on how we hire, and I had to just tell the truth. I do look at other organizations and see who's the top talent there, and if they'd want to work with us at all, for example. So feel like there's nothing without authenticity, and this generation, I think the next generation as well, right? The Gen Z, as we call them. They're too smart and they're too shrewd, and they're born on the internet, so they will catch on to your fakeness like this. So that's all storytelling is for me, personally.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think I wouldn't have a career without storytelling. So.
Yeah, you are like the
Yeah.
real crux of your
Yeah.
account is
Yeah, so
real
we're-
raw storytelling.
I know usually when we're deciding what to post or the kind of content that we should be telling, we realized that it's not about how perfect the reel is or how perfect somebody looks or the right music. It's about the story. If the story is strong, people will kind of resonate, they'll relate, they'll share. We just last week did a story of a guy who went around in a slum in Bombay and distributed sanitary pads.
Wow.
And people were just like, this is so refreshing, where it's still considered such a large taboo to have male energy be like, you know,
Let me help with this,
let me
yeah.
help with this. This is so normal.
Yeah.
Why is this a taboo?
Yeah.
It was a story. It was not the music. It was not the fluff.
It's not the aesthetic edit. none
Yeah,
of that,
yeah. So I think it's just the realness of stories that people really like and appreciate. Also, this brings me to my next question, because the second most important thing for us is community. And we have a very, very sticky community. So when we get behind something, the community rallies. And I think that that's something that you just can't place a price on, right? Because like you mentioned, the influencer space is kind of cluttered. The real, authentic followers that build and work around community is, according to me, something that sets people or influencers or creators apart. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Deepa, maybe you can take it first.
What I think of community. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's one of the most important things for a brand, for me as a creator as well. But what is community? I think it's, like you said, a group of like-minded people that believe in the same vision that you believe in, and it believe in the world the way you believe in it. And most often it's, I think, the right cause and the right side of history, but as we've seen on social media, the community can also be for the wrong causes and the wrong side of history. But I think community in today's day and age is so important, and it goes above any buzzword that it might stand for. I feel like every beauty brand or every fashion brand is like, I'm a community-driven brand. Yeah, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I think taking it down a level, it's conversation.
Right.
I think community is talking to them. And again, to bring it back to the brand, when we say we're community driven, it goes to the extent that we literally call them our co-founders, because before Indiawild even had a name or a product, it had a community. And of course, it was my community that became the Indiawild community, but we did in the first year, I think 16 focus groups with them.
Wow.
Where we invited, the core followers of mine from the US, from the UK, India, sat with them sometimes for 2.5 hours with the times differences and just spoke to them. What are you missing? What are you lacking? What are your pain points? What is in your skincare concern that hasn't been met yet? Like, is it pigmentation? Is it SPF? Like, what are you really lacking? And through all of their kind of voices and concerns, Indiawild was born. So for generations, beauty has been very top-down, where a few French people in offices of L'Oreal and Estee Lauder decide, hey, this is the mascara you need because it will make you beautiful. Indiawild decided to flip the script and make beauty democratic.
Yeah.
It's like, you tell us what you want, and we'll go and make that.
Make that happen.
And make the brand and the product that you want. So they literally decided sometimes our colors, our logo, our name. And so when it was finally launched, the community already, parts of them knew. And then sharing with the rest of the community that a small section of that community actually built the brand and were your voices, just made it so authentic.
It wasn't just yours, it became ours.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Because they contributed
Exactly.
to the brand.
And until today, the focus group, talking to them, even with our customer experience team being one of the most important pillars of our company, it is keeping that conversation going. Like we always say, never close the conversation. So if somebody comes to us with an issue, always keep it going. Even at the end, it's not like, okay, take your refund, bye. It's like, can we help you with something else? Maybe are you looking for something else? Like, it's constantly about keeping them involved with us and never losing that touch point with the essence of everything that we are, which is community.
Yeah, absolutely. have you seen such a similar drastic involvement of community either in your brands or the influencers who are kind of pushing these brands?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the creators that we're working with, I feel like without the community, they are nothing. Like, it is the community, it's the subscribers that make them. And we started off as an agency working primarily with YouTubers. I feel like YouTube as a platform, the kind of community it helps you develop
Yeah.
is unparalleled. I don't think any other platform comes close. I also feel like a lot of that is because YouTube started off with long form first. Um, it's also a platform which had a slightly higher entry barrier. If you had to post content on YouTube, you had to have a strategy, maybe an elaborate team over a period of time, an actual thought on how you want to create content, and not just jumping onto trends, which is just something, again, I try to advise to the younger set of creators that we have these days, that don't latch on to every trend that you have, because people are going to look at you as just another influencer. They're not coming to your profile for you. They're discovering you through the Reels tab,
Right.
which basically means that they're actually not coming to subscribe for you, or they're not coming out and looking for you. As opposed to when someone goes to YouTube where they're actually typing their names. I'll go to an Ashish Chanchlani Wines and watch his comedy video. I'll go to a Beer Biceps' podcast and see a specific podcast, for example. And I feel like community is the core of what creators need to be building, because over a period of time, I mean, every creator does want to either move to Bollywood or move to business, right? And if they're moving to business, it is the community that's actually going to buy from them, especially in a market like India where people are so used to having stuff for free. To actually want to have them spend anything. Sorry?
I'm very so used to having things for free.
Yeah, like effectively, I mean, all content is for free for them.
Yeah. Oh, that
As soon
way,
as you have a paywall, like they don't want to consume your content.
Yeah.
Or the millions of giveaways that brands have that they think will help them build an audience. I don't think that really helps, because people will take things for free and forget about your brand. What really works there is your community. What are you giving to your audience that they will come back and buy anything that you produce tomorrow?
Right.
And it's that 10,000 fan theory that Tim Ferriss has spoken about in the past, that no matter how many millions of people you have, it is actually those 10,000 super fans that will support you no matter what you do tomorrow. And that is who you really need to be loyal towards, because tomorrow if you start a startup, your own beauty brand, fashion brand, it is those people who will subscribe to the email list first, who will pre-order first. And I feel like community becomes so important for that. And it can all be built purely from asking yourself one question: what can I give to my audience?
Right.
And the more you give is when you, at one moment, 5 years, 10 years later, when you will ask them for something, they will stand up for you.
Yeah.
And I feel like community is super important from that angle. Besides that, I mean, thankfully, having a co-founder who's also a creator helps. Even though I'm a B2B business effectively at an agency level, anything that we do launch or any creator we end up signing, we're supported by folks who've followed our journey since the early days of our careers, and they're always cheering for us. And we truly get a pulse of that when we meet these people in person.
Right.
And they'll tell us about an anecdote or instance where they saw something that we produced 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that we probably forgotten about, but it's still like vivid in their memories, for example. And I feel like very fortunate about the fact that anyone who has distribution can easily build other things on top of that. And I feel like as creators, distribution has taken time to build, of course, but that's something that creators should definitely leverage in order to build legacy businesses over a period of time. Like what Marico Group has, for example, is distribution pan-India, for example, right? That is why any product that they launch today, they will be able to ensure that it is on 10,000 shelves. And that is what creators have, but digitally. So can you ensure that 10,000 people at least immediately pre-order your product? That's how you have your initial mileage, and then you can build onto that. So I feel like community is super important from all aspects. If you don't have community, there will be people asking you questions that you are irrelevant.
Yeah.
And as a creator, you don't really want to face that.
Yeah. So, last few questions before we'll open it up to the audience. We've spoken a lot about being creators, but you guys are also founders. And then you have a personal brand that goes alongside. So how do you kind of ensure that, does the personal brand and the brand overlap? And how does that communication kind of flow? I'll begin with you, Diipa.
I'll speak from my own experience. I think because I was a personal brand first, and then a founder of a beauty brand after, it was a very normal evolution for me because it was building the community first and then giving them something they were lacking,
Right.
And so I think in today's day and age, being a founder-led business, as globally we call it, is so important.
Yeah.
And even if you are not a creator, but you've started a business, I would almost prescribe to you and recommend to you start posting online and be a founder face. And because there's always people who want to know the behind the scenes. They want to know the journey. They want to know how difficult it is. A really good example is a founder I recently stumbled upon. There's this brand in the US called August. They sell sanitary pads, and the founder was not a creator. And today on Instagram, on TikTok, together they have about 5 million followers. And just because the founder resonates with the story and tells the story off the brand, but she's the face of it.
Correct.
So she's constantly talking, debunking, myths about periods, debunking, and it's very in-your-face content, but hey, sensationalism, it works. And her following has taken a wild rise, and it's just you're here to speak to that. Again, a brand needs to be a person, and who better than the founder to be that person of the brand,
Exactly.
to be able to give the brand a face, give the brand a personality, and just speak for the vision of the brand. And so I think 100% that they're both interconnected.
Of course, and in your case, obviously you were able to leverage the business because your personal brand was so strong.
Yeah.
But what kind of strategies do you use to ensure that both are successful? Because sometimes you can't have a blanket approach and be like, okay,
No.
let's apply it.
No.
So what kind of strategies do you use?
I think it's, again, to each their own, but my personal strategy is still keeping the personal brand going as with its storytelling, with its content that my audience has always seen, because they've literally seen me go from a university kid to now a mother. So keeping them connected to me as a person is very important, but at the same time, pivoting to this new evolution of me being a founder and letting them get that inside glance into that. I'm not too salesy as a founder. I don't do too much buy here in the world, best product in the world, da. I do it more in a very, again, storytelling way. I do it when we either have wins or losses. I share those. I share the journey. And then Indewald's page talks more about, of course, Indewald and the product. So that's the way I have done it. But I can imagine if you are a founder that doesn't have a social media presence, I would say embody the brand and just do it full-heartedly, 100%. Yeah.
You are in a very precarious situation because your co-founder obviously has such a large following that is very different, right? You as an individual, him as an individual, and the agency as an individual. How is it working?
So I have completely moved Ranveer out of being the face of the company. I feel like, I don't want it to be a case where, again, personal branding and the company can be such a double-edged sword because I don't want to restrict Ranveer's way of producing content. But I feel like sometimes he likes to indulge in certain conversations which may not be best suited at an agency level for us, for example. But I don't want to restrict him from doing that because that's what his audience is seeking, for example. So what I've learned is that, as every day passes, I'm working on my personal brand further. But even in that case, I do feel like There's a lot of things that I tweet about which is like too honest, which doesn't necessarily need to resonate always with what the company would like to feel, because I do post a lot of tweets about creators where I feel like, creators these days are just chasing the free goodies and the one-off Maldives vacations and things like that, which is quite honest of me, but I mean, like it's okay if people get offended along the way, can't help it. But I do like to believe that now I finally understand when people in the Twitter bios used to write retweets are not endorsements or tweets are not endorsements, and I never understood the meaning of that. But basically, it means that they're trying to separate themselves from the identity or the company that they're working for. And I feel like to an extent, as much as you try to avoid it, the founder, co-founder will always have their personal brand hand to hand with the company. So at the core of it, my values and the company values still resonate and are the same. I do feel like personal branding is something founders should just move in the direction of leading forward, because I mean, the richest guy on the planet is running his company on the basis of his personal brand. That's Elon Musk.
Yeah, of course.
And again, it's a double-edged sword for him, because he's getting flack for it, and he's also getting new customers for his platform because of his personal brand. So it has to be monitored how you really need to sit yourself down and understand, I am an individual, I have certain thoughts. I don't want the fact that I run a company to stifle some of those thoughts, because Twitter is a very brutally honest platform. But you can, deliver certain messages in certain diplomatic, politically correct ways. So I feel like, in general, there's a lot more net positive in having a personal brand as a founder, because you're able to acquire more customers, you're able to get more people to latch onto your brand, to know about your brand effectively. And it just helps you save a lot more money. Plus, also if you have a personal brand, you're going to be invited to a lot more opportunities to speak, to network much faster than if you didn't have one. So if you didn't have a personal brand, it is really your company who's going to have to be at a solid level in order for you to be invited to that event. And then you'd be having to compete with the really, really big shots of the world. So if you have attention and eyeballs digitally, I think it's like a golden visa that you have to all kinds of opportunities. And it's just an easier way and hack for you to make it to, like important events. To just give you an example, my company is not valued anywhere close to some of the companies that are here. But I bring something else on the table, which is like digital distribution, influencer marketing, content creation, which are effectively the buzzwords of at least the early part of this decade, and hopefully the later part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's time, guys. But closing thoughts, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience, is what advice would you guys give to founders who want to leverage digital to build their brands? We'll start with you, Diipa.
Advice, just get started. I think sometimes the hardest part is you getting in your own way. I know it can be a scary world out there, and you're like, I need to get the best equipment, and I need to buy and it's like so much thinking and thought, and just get started. You'll learn along the way. Like, build the plane while you're flying it. Seriously.
I feel just the easiest way to build your personal brand and your company's brand is to get a co-founder who's already popular. That's how I built it. That's my brutally honest answer.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, guys. This was so much fun. I learned a lot. We'll open it up to a few questions. If anybody has any, no pressure.
Question here, Diipa, for you. So you had your equity as an influencer, and then you launched your brand as well. So could you just share, like, what were a couple of things which were challenges for you in translating that equity as an influencer into business as a brand? So not so much from the product, obviously there's the product side of things, but just more in terms of conversation, communication with consumers. how do you translate that into business? What were the challenges that you faced?
Thank you. In the world of, again, too many celebrity influencer brands, the biggest thing working against us is authenticity and trust. And like what you said earlier as well, is, you know, for so long they're used to seeing you in this capacity, and it's that initial first 10,000 people you hope will stand up for you. So I think for me, the biggest challenge, and I remember this day like yesterday when we were going to make the website go live for the first time, and I'm like, okay, 2 years of work, what's going to happen now? It all like is this moment. I'm going to make the website live, and is anybody going to check out? Is anybody going to care? And it truly boils down to those first few people who take that bet on you, and you hope that you've done a good enough job in being authentic and gaining their trust that they will. And of course, I always say the product at the end is holy grail. Like, you could be the biggest influencer in the world. You could be Brad Pitt and launch a skincare line, which he did. You could be anybody in the world and launch a brand, and it might not work, because if the product doesn't resonate with your audience, and if they don't buy it for a second time, and if they don't tell their friend about it, all of that is BS, you know? So for me, it was really, really hoping that I had done a good enough job to be authentic, to tell the story well, and to gain their trust, that the initial first people who tried it would then tell 10 more. And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah.
Super, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. My name is Jaideep. I represent a brand called Adya. It's into silver jewelry. I have this question for all of you, actually. Brands and everybody, the content creators, put in a lot of efforts in posting a story. But how do you respond to it when you get negative feedback or trolls on that particular story? I want perspective from all of you, actually.
So basically, on negativity on a particular story or post,
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're getting into digital and you're allowing yourself to get into the public domain, you have to accept that not everybody's going to agree with you. We posted a really cute reel yesterday of like a dog and a baby, and people had a serious issue because they were like, what is so inspirational about it? And I'm like, why? It's just
It's
really cute. Like they think they're siblings. Isn't that like really cute? And there's like a whole debate going on, and I was just like, oh my God, it's a dog and a baby. I don't know who that's harming, but people have opinions. So learned this the hard way, learned it at around year 4 of my near 10-year career, that you can't please anybody and you just have to turn a blind eye and move on. It is what it is.
I mean, see, if I'm in a bad mood, I love engaging with hate. I love throwing in some sass and sarcasm. That's as simple as it is. If I'm in a good mood, I will just think it's cute of him or her to say whatever they said and move on.
Can I just say, please don't engage with the negativity, because it just does not go anywhere. Like, people will argue till the end of time, because that's how much time there is available. And you, at some point, are going to give up and be like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
No,
So
there's definitely a percentage of that. I think, indeed, in the years of doing this, you build an armor. Like, you cannot be in digital unless you can take hate. My only thing to add to everything they would say is that, for me, sometimes when I do see hate, I think a big chunk of it is like, forget it, they're just people in there hiding behind their computers, just hating on them because they have too much time in their life to do that. But sometimes I do check in and self-reflect, saying, might there be something that's true there? Because you can always grow as a person, you can always grow as a brand. If there's something to the hate that perhaps could improve you, your product, your personal brand, then I would say be man or woman enough to take that critique. And maybe it came in the wrong tone, wrong manner, da da da. But there's many times through hate that I have learned something. So it most of the time is horrible. But once in a while, perhaps it helps you become a better person and helps you see a blind side that you didn't see.
on? Hi, I'm Shriya. I'm the founder of Zama. My question to all of you actually is, once you identify creators that you think would work very well with your brand and you like their story and their content, what is the best way to approach them and get them excited to work with your brand, especially when you're a smaller brand?
Tell them you're giving them money. That's it. That's the easiest way to approach creators. Oh, you guys are a smaller brand. Okay. You will have to then give them some kind of perks. If that means that you're going to engage with a creator and instead of paying them as much money, tell them that you're going to spend monies on promoting that piece of content. For example, that will probably give them more visibility. If you want, and this will not work in the case of very big influencers or creators, because they are going to be like, I don't care about visibility, just give me the money. If you want to work with a very big creator and want to get them engaged in a brand and you don't have money to spend, maybe become a brand that is interesting enough for that creator where they might want some advisory equity on your brand, and then they will be all in on your brand and then actually want to promote it as well. So, I mean, I feel like that's another way to do it. If you don't want to dilute your equity, the third way to do it is find some kind of mutual connection, find some relative who knows them. That's actually a very bad idea and route to go through, but you can, try, like, shoot your shot effectively. But I feel like at the end of it all, it's a transaction, right? And you can call it everything and you can feel like, okay, brands and creators shouldn't be transactional, but the first conversation is going to be that. Whenever you speak to an influencer or the agent or manager, they are going to ask you one question: how much am I getting paid for it? So figure out some smarter ways to ensure that you engage with these folks. If you are a high-end luxury brand, maybe just your product would be enough for them to endorse instead of you paying them for it as well. So there's various ways to move around this. You've got to be smart, and sometimes you really have to just hustle it out with them and really hammer them and be like, come, let's work, let's figure something out. And if they're in a good mood that day, and if they're feeling very charitable, they'll be like, you know what, let me give this brand a shot. I truly believe in it.
I know you asked this question, but this time's up has been blinking for like the last 20 minutes now. So sorry, but what he said.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. I think, I know there will be lots of questions coming in, but unfortunately the time is up. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.